This past winter, I had the opportunity to go ice climbing for my first time. Now, I've been rock climbing before, but this is the first time I went ice climbing. And, we were split up into two different groups. I was with a group of people. And so four of us could go ice climbing, and the rest could cheer them on from the ground. And so there's four people going, and one person's going, and she's doing really well. And she gets about two-thirds of the way up, and it clearly looks like she's going to make it to the top. But she looks down at the ground, and she says, "I just remembered I'm afraid of heights." And she stops. That's it. Let me down. So she comes back down. In that moment, she could have called upon God to help her. I mean, she wasn't in any sort of danger. She was fully secured with the ropes. She was fine, but yet she gave up. And so many times, we hear of, so many people giving up on the Catholic faith. The second biggest denomination are fallen away Catholics. And why is it? Why do people give up on the faith? Ultimately, why do they give up on Jesus Christ? Because Jesus Christ is one of the most valuable things that we have. In our first reading from the prophet Jeremiah, Jeremiah has a difficult prophetic ministry. I mean, even his closest friends want to see him fail. Even his closest friends are, not on his side and supporting him. And yet the prophet recognizes that if God is with me, then I have nothing to be afraid of. And nothing to be afraid of, in other words, nothing to be afraid of being the voice of God for others. And sometimes we need to call upon God so that we can truly be the voice of God for others. Now, hopefully, we're not afraid of our sin, but sometimes we can see ourselves as being unworthy, or we can just define ourselves from our sinful point of view. So we all share in Adam. That's to say, we're all sinners. But, even greater than our sin is the grace of Christ. If we look at Jesus' death and resurrection, not even, a Roman execution, the most violent thing of the time period, could stop the love of God found in Jesus Christ. So the grace that Christ offers us, that continuous fruit that flows from his death and resurrection, continues to identify us as children of God, continues to be a way of releasing us of our sin. When at the Easter Vigil, when we're asked, do you refuse to be mastered by sin, is we know that we can always come back to our merciful God. And we ought to always come back to our merciful God. And then as God is merciful with us, we have to be merciful with others. In the gospel reading, Jesus encouraging the disciples to not be afraid. In other words, to let go of their fear, because everything that he has shared with them in private is going to be proclaimed even from the rooftops. In other words, that everyone will have an opportunity to learn about Jesus' teachings, but also to learn about him and how important that is. At least, people need to have the opportunity to learn about Jesus Christ. And if they decide that, no, thank you, well, then that's up to them. At least they've had the opportunity. I visited with a gentleman just recently. He said he grew up in the Lutheran faith, but at a certain point in time, he just gave up. But he said, I still hold the values of Christianity, but I'm an atheist. Well, at least he's had the opportunity to embrace Jesus Christ. And the disciples are to acknowledge Jesus Christ. But really what they are to do is to live their lives according to Jesus Christ. They are to have the values of the gospel, and that's the most important thing. Because a lot of times it's not about the words that we share with other people, but how we live our lives is how we can be great prophets in our time. And so as we gather around the table, Lord, hopefully we're not afraid to come to the table. And even in our sinfulness, even in our, unworthiness, we are still valued by Jesus Christ. And what a blessing it is that we let go of any fear at this table, and we offer them to be transformed so that we can continue to proclaim Jesus Christ with our lives, and we can continue to embrace the love of God found in Jesus Christ.